There is a question that almost nobody in the American food system wants to answer honestly. Why do the cheapest vegetables on earth also happen to be the ones most consistently linked to longer life? And why are most Americans barely eating any of them? The average American spends more than $13,000 a year on food. That number has climbed sharply in just the last few years, and for households on fixed incomes, the pressure is real and it is constant. Meanwhile, medical costs continue to rise, chronic disease rates continue to climb, and the pharmaceutical industry continues to post record profits. But buried inside decades of nutritional research, longevity studies, and centenarian population data sits a pattern that is almost too simple to take seriously. The populations that live the longest, with the fewest chronic diseases, spend the least on food. And the foundation of nearly every one of those diets is not exotic. It is not expensive. It is vegetables. Ordinary, unglamorous, deeply affordable vegetables. This is a ranking of 10 vegetables that cost almost nothing and that the science says could genuinely add years to your life. Whether you eat fully plant-based or you are simply trying to stretch a grocery budget while protecting your health, this list matters more than most people realize. And the number one entry is one that researchers have studied more than almost any other food on Earth. Number 10. Carrots. A single pound of carrots in the United States costs less than $1 in most grocery stores. That makes them one of the cheapest whole foods available in the country. But what most people treat as a throwaway side dish or a lunchbox filler has a nutritional profile and a history that deserve far more respect. Carrots were cultivated for thousands of years across Persia and Central Asia before they ever reached European tables. During the Second World War, the British government actively promoted carrot consumption as part of wartime food strategy, partly because carrots were easy to grow domestically, and partly because their beta-carotene content supported genuine health outcomes at a time when the national diet was under severe strain. Beta-carotene, which the body converts to vitamin A, is essential for immune function, skin integrity, and eye health. For anyone eating a fully plant-based diet, carrots are one of the most efficient and affordable sources of this nutrient available. A single large carrot provides more than 200% of the daily recommended intake of vitamin A. At less than $1 a pound, that is a nutritional return that almost nothing else in the grocery store can match. The research around carotenoid-rich diets and reduced rates of chronic disease, particularly cardiovascular disease and certain cancers, has only grown stronger over the past 2 decades. This is not a superfood trend. This is a vegetable that has quietly sustained human populations for centuries at nearly no cost. Number 9. Cabbage. If there is a single vegetable that deserves to be called the most undervalued food in America, it might be cabbage. It regularly costs less than 60 cents a pound. A single head can feed a family for multiple meals, and yet most Americans walk past it without a second thought. Cabbage has been a cornerstone of human survival for thousands of years. Across Eastern Europe, across Korea, across northern China, cabbage was the vegetable that got communities through winter. Not because it was exciting, but because it was durable, calorie efficient, and remarkably easy to preserve. Sauerkraut in Germany, kimchi in Korea, curtido in Central America. Across cultures and centuries, people figured out that fermenting cabbage did something extraordinary. It created a living probiotic food that supported gut health long before anyone understood the science behind the microbiome. Today, researchers have identified that gut health is directly connected to immune function, inflammation levels, mental health, and even longevity itself. Fermented cabbage is one of the cheapest probiotic foods on the planet. For anyone on a vegan diet, where gut health can sometimes be disrupted during dietary transitions, fermented cabbage is not just useful. It is essential. Raw cabbage is also a strong source of vitamin C, vitamin K, and fiber. It stores for weeks in a refrigerator without losing nutritional integrity. In an era where food waste is a genuine economic drain on households, that durability alone matters. Number 8. Onions. Onions are so fundamental to cooking that most people forget they are a vegetable at all. They show up as a background ingredient, the base of a sauce, the first thing in the pan. But nutritionally and historically, onions are far more significant than their quiet role suggests. Onions have been cultivated for over 5,000 years. Ancient Egyptians revered them. Roman soldiers carried them as field rations. Throughout the medieval period, onions were one of the few vegetables available year-round to ordinary people, and they were used not just as food, but as medicine. Modern research has validated much of that ancient intuition. Onions are one of the richest dietary sources of quercetin, a flavonoid with potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be a root driver of heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline, and many cancers. A vegetable that costs roughly $1 a pound and fights systemic inflammation every time you eat it is not a background ingredient. It is a frontline defense. For plant-based eaters, onions also play a practical role that often goes unmentioned. They add depth, richness, and savory complexity to meals that might otherwise feel flat without animal-based fats and stocks. That culinary function matters for long-term dietary adherence, which is one of the most underrated factors in whether any diet actually works. Number 7. Beets. Beets have been quietly disappearing from the American diet for decades. They were once a staple across Eastern Europe and Russia, sustaining populations through some of the harshest winters and most difficult economic periods in modern history. Borscht was not a novelty, it was survival. And yet, in contemporary American grocery culture, beets are treated as a niche ingredient, something for a specialty salad or a trendy juice bar. This is a significant nutritional loss. Beets are one of the highest natural sources of dietary nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is critical for blood vessel dilation, blood pressure regulation, and cardiovascular efficiency. Multiple clinical studies have demonstrated that regular beet consumption can meaningfully lower blood pressure, a finding that matters enormously for an aging population where hypertension is one of the leading drivers of heart attack and stroke. Beets also contain betalains, pigments with strong anti-inflammatory and detoxification-supporting properties. They are rich in folate, manganese, and potassium. They cost between $1 and $2 a pound, and they store well. For anyone on a plant-based diet, especially anyone over 50 managing cardiovascular risk, beets are not optional. They are arguably one of the most important vegetables you can eat regularly. Number 6. Bell peppers. Most people associate vitamin C with citrus fruit, oranges, lemons, grapefruits. But a single red bell pepper contains nearly 3 times the vitamin C of an orange. And for anyone eating a plant-based diet, that fact is not trivia. It is critical. One of the most common nutritional challenges in a vegan diet is iron absorption. Plant-based iron, known as non-heme iron, is significantly harder for the body to absorb than the heme iron found in animal products. But vitamin C dramatically enhances non-heme iron absorption. Eating bell peppers alongside iron-rich plant foods like spinach, lentils, or beans can increase iron uptake by as much as 3 to 6 times. That single nutritional interaction can be the difference between thriving on a plant-based diet and slowly developing an iron deficiency that leads to fatigue, cognitive fog, and weakened immunity. Bell peppers are not expensive. They are widely available. And yet most plant-based dietary guides bury this information instead of leading with it. Beyond the vitamin C connection, bell peppers are rich in antioxidants, particularly carotenoids and flavonoids, that have been associated with reduced risks of chronic eye disease and certain cancers. They are also one of the most versatile cooking vegetables available, fitting into virtually any cuisine or preparation method. Number 5. Spinach. Spinach has been mythologized in American culture for almost a century, largely because of a cartoon character. But the real nutritional story of spinach is more interesting and more complicated than the Popeye legend ever suggested. Spinach is genuinely one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables on Earth. A single cup of cooked spinach provides significant amounts of iron, folate, vitamin K, vitamin A, manganese, and magnesium. For plant-based eaters, it is one of the most efficient ways to cover multiple nutritional gaps in a single food. But here is where spinach becomes especially relevant to longevity research. Spinach is exceptionally rich in nitrates and antioxidants that support cardiovascular function. It is also one of the highest food sources of lutein and zeaxanthin, two compounds directly linked to reduced risk of age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of vision loss in Americans over 60. Fresh spinach is affordable. Frozen spinach, which retains nearly all of its nutritional value, is even cheaper and lasts for months. In a food economy where prices are climbing steadily, frozen spinach may be one of the single best nutritional investments a household can make. It costs almost nothing, lasts indefinitely in a freezer, and delivers a concentration of essential nutrients that very few foods can rival. Number 4. Kale. For about a decade, kale became a cultural punchline. It was the poster child of an elite health food movement that felt disconnected from ordinary American eating. Smoothie bars charged $8 for a cup of blended kale, and an entire demographic wrote it off as pretentious nonsense. But behind the marketing noise, kale has a story that goes back thousands of years and a nutritional profile that is genuinely difficult to match. Before it became a trend, kale was a peasant crop. Across Scotland, Northern Europe, and parts of Africa, kale was what poor communities grew because it survived frost, required almost no care, and produced food reliably in conditions that killed off more delicate crops. For decades in the United States, kale was used primarily as a decorative garnish. Restaurants placed it around salad bars for appearance. Almost nobody ate it. What makes kale essential for anyone eating plant-based is its calcium content. Dairy is the primary calcium source in most American diets, and removing it creates a gap that many vegans never adequately fill. Kale is one of the best plant-based calcium sources available, and unlike spinach, whose calcium is partially bound by oxalates, the calcium in kale is highly bioavailable. The body actually absorbs it efficiently. Kale is also dense in vitamin K, which is critical for bone health, and in sulforaphane precursors, which are under active study for their potential role in cancer prevention. A bunch of kale costs almost nothing. It grows almost anywhere, and it fills one of the most important nutritional gaps in a vegan diet. Number 3. Sweet potatoes. In Okinawa, Japan, one of the most studied longevity populations on Earth, sweet potatoes historically made up the majority of daily caloric intake. Not rice, not fish, sweet potatoes. The Okinawan purple sweet potato was the dietary foundation for a population that produced more centenarians per capita than virtually anywhere else in the world. That is not a coincidence, and the research supports it. Sweet potatoes are rich in complex carbohydrates, beta-carotene, vitamin C, potassium, and fiber. They provide sustained energy without the blood sugar spikes associated with processed carbohydrates. Their anthocyanin content, particularly in purple varieties, has been linked to anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective effects. For anyone eating plant-based, sweet potatoes solve a practical problem that many people struggle with. They are calorie-dense, deeply satisfying, and filling in a way that many vegetables are not. One of the most common reasons people abandon plant-based diets is that they feel hungry. Sweet potatoes address that directly. They are substantial, they are warming, and they cost on average about $1 per pound. In an inflationary food environment where processed calorie-dense foods are often cheaper than whole foods, sweet potatoes are a rare exception. They are whole, nutrient-rich, deeply affordable, and connected to some of the strongest longevity data in nutritional science. Number 2. Garlic. Garlic has been used as medicine for longer than almost any other plant substance in human history. Ancient Egyptian workers building the pyramids were given garlic rations. Greek and Roman soldiers carried it into battle. Traditional Chinese medicine has prescribed it for thousands of years. Across nearly every long-lived population ever studied, garlic appears in the diet consistently. The modern research has confirmed what those civilizations intuited. Garlic contains allicin, a sulfur compound released when cloves are crushed or chopped, which has demonstrated antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and cardiovascular protective properties in study after study. Regular garlic consumption has been associated with lower blood pressure, reduced LDL cholesterol, improved arterial function, and enhanced immune response. A bulb of garlic costs pennies. A single clove per day, an almost negligible expense, delivers measurable protective effects according to peer-reviewed research. For plant-based eaters, garlic is also a flavor engine that makes simple meals feel complex and satisfying, which again matters enormously for long-term dietary sustainability. There are very few foods on Earth where the cost-to-health benefit ratio is this extreme. Garlic is not a supplement. It is not a pharmaceutical product. It is a vegetable that costs almost nothing, has been trusted by human civilizations for 5,000 years, and continues to be validated by modern science. Number 1. Broccoli. No vegetable on Earth has been studied more intensively by modern nutritional science than broccoli, and the reason is a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is produced when broccoli is chewed, chopped, or lightly cooked, and it has become one of the most actively researched natural compounds in cancer prevention science. Studies from Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and research institutions across Europe and Asia have demonstrated that sulforaphane activates the body's own detoxification enzymes, reduces oxidative stress, and may inhibit the growth of cancer cells in multiple tissue types. The depth of this research is not preliminary. It is decades deep and still expanding. But broccoli is not a one-compound story. It is rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, folate, potassium, and fiber. It provides meaningful plant-based protein. It contains kaempferol, a flavonoid with strong anti-inflammatory properties, and it delivers calcium in a bioavailable form, making it another critical food for vegans who have removed dairy from their diets. Broccoli is widely available, affordable, and stores well both fresh and frozen. Frozen broccoli, in particular, retains its sulforaphane potential and costs a fraction of what fresh broccoli costs. A bag of frozen broccoli that lasts a household for multiple meals can be purchased for less than $2 in most of the country. What makes broccoli the number 1 vegetable on this list is not any single attribute. It is the convergence, cost, availability, longevity research depth, cancer prevention data, nutrient density, vegan nutritional gap coverage, practicality, shelf life. No other vegetable checks every one of those boxes as convincingly. In a food system that pushes consumers toward expensive supplements, processed alternatives, and pharmaceutical interventions, broccoli sits quietly on the shelf, costing almost nothing, backed by more research than most drugs, and ignored by the majority of American households. The pattern across this entire list is not complicated. The vegetables that cost the least have been sustaining human civilizations the longest. The populations that eat them most consistently live the longest. And the modern food economy has systematically pushed American consumers away from every single one of them, toward products that cost more, deliver less, and generate far more profit for someone other than you. Eating well in this economy is not about spending more. It never was. It is about recognizing what was always there, what sustained your grandparents and their grandparents before them, and what the research continues to confirm no matter how many times the food industry tries to change the subject. These 10 vegetables cost almost nothing, and the evidence says they could give you something no product on a pharmacy shelf ever will.